Good afternoon. Representative Barham, Senator Doyle, Senator Whitcoast, Representative Carter, and members of the General Law Committee, thank you for raising the bill and giving me the opportunity to testify in support of HB 5418, an act concerning prescription drug labels. According to the Institute of Medicine, National Academy of Sciences, at least 1.5 million people every year are affected by medication errors. According to Families USA, nearly 40% of medications are taken incorrectly by Medicare patients. This is made even more troubling when you realize that over 90% of Medicare patients take at least one medication every day for a chronic illness, and half of them take at least 5 medicines daily. According to a study led by Dr. Leora Horowitz, a practitioner at Yale New Haven Hospital, 81% of patients experienced either a provider error in their discharge medication or had no clear understanding of how to take that medication. Further troubling findings include that up to 1/2 of all medications are taken incorrectly or mixed with other medications that cause dangerous reactions that can lead to injury and death. Approximately 46% of American adults cannot understand the label on their prescription medications. And another statistic that is not here, it's deeper in my submitted written testimony, is that 73% of limited English proficient patients, while they can repeat the instructions on medications, when asked to demonstrate they can actually understand and show the correct number of pills, cannot do so. 45% of them could not actually do so. The intent of HB 5418 is to improve the labeling of prescription medication by making directions easier to understand. This can be accomplished by providing more specific instructions for use, improving font size and type, and additional language options. Together, these changes will help citizens from all walks of life have a better understanding of how to properly take their prescribed medication. I understand there may be hesitation in passing legislation that could result in an increased cost or regulation to the prescription drug industry, but there are too many people in our society that are currently suffering from medication errors. Just the other day, I spoke with my pharmacist at Target, and they actually already provide this type of labeling, as do most of the national pharmacies, because there's a similar version of this bill that was passed in the state of California in 2007. I've submitted that into testimony as well as the analysis of their bill, and then they did a follow-up 2010 hearing on that bill. So I submitted all of those 3 things into testimony. Overall, when a patient properly takes their prescribed medication, they are more likely to have a quicker recovery. This will prevent the risk of relapse of the original condition and could prevent additional hospitalization or treatment, saving the patient and the state of Connecticut in healthcare costs. Ultimately, the goal of this bill is to increase consumer protection and increase the health, safety, and well-being of consumers. As Representative Rose said before, our primary charge is the health, safety, and welfare of our constituents. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today, and I'm willing to answer any questions.
Good timing. Any questions from the committee members? Representative Vitigliano.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, Representative Maroney. Do you have the estimated cost to businesses for this bill?
Yeah, thank you very much, Representative Vitigliano. In the analysis on page 5 of that hearing, they found that there would be no adverse economic impact on the California businesses. When asked in October 2009, a board member of the Board of Pharmacy in California testified that the approximate cost would be a one-time $1,000 charge. And we're looking at, unfortunately, as a small businessman, I know that that still is a lot of money, and it would primarily hit the smaller pharmacies because, as I mentioned, Target and a lot of the national pharmacies have already improved the literacy on their labels. However, we understand, with the Affordable Care Act being implemented, they are going to need to make some changes, and it would be part of basically upgrading their software. The labels are printed right at the pharmacy, and as we know, maybe we could push the date out of implementation because there are normal, I'm sure, I know you're a business person as well, and we need to invest in technology every few years to upgrade our different software packages, so it would be probably marginal over their normal costs.
Mr. Chairman, one more question. Does the Affordable Care Act address this issue at all? Are we going to have a standardized prescription label next year or the year after?
That's a good question. The genesis of this bill was speaking with a friend of mine who works at NYU Medical School. She's part of the Health and Education Literacy Project, and a lot of this has come out of her research. I've been talking to her about her research since the beginning, since the 2007. And I had asked her that question. She was looking into that for me. There are some changes, but not all of these changes that they're suggesting. And one of the things that they have done at the Health and Education Literacy Project is they are actually providing the translations for 5 languages to the state of California, and they'll make that available. And that's one of the things, is that with the people with limited English proficiency, to make sure that they also have access to the health care. And so that is something that they would be. They have submitted written testimony here, and I'm sure we could ask them to provide those translations to us.
Thank you, Representative Maroney. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Representative Antebellum.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon. So you think that there are pharmacies out there that are distributing prescriptions without giving the information that you list in say, the California bill, A through J and AA?
Well, when you look at the California bill, if you look on page 2, some of the recommendations they make are increasing the font types and sizes so to make it more accessible for seniors. It does list in the analysis the people who supported this bill. They may not necessarily be offering it in the native language to the patient. And again, we'd have to limit the number of languages that we would be willing to offer those in. The other thing is just making it a more patient-centered language instead of having the legal disclaimers and the legalese. Another thing is looking at like the dosing implements, making sure it's clear. And the other recommendation they had made is, if possible, including pictograms or pictures to depict, how to take the medication. So not all pharmacies are doing that now.
Not all of that, certainly.
I did look at the Target one, and I said, well, that's big font. I don't think you can get any bigger than that. But they put all the disclaimers beneath it in another sheet. So it's just clear on the label are the directions in a very large font that make it very clear on how to use.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Representative Carter.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for bringing this to the committee. What is your vision of who would make these decisions as to exactly how they would be standardized?
Yes, I think in California they have the pharmacy board, and I apologize, I need to look into that. And it comes from the recommendations of the pharmacy board. And it's based on the research, and a lot of it is the research from that Health and Education Literacy project. New York is also looking at implementing this now as well, but I don't believe they have a law passed yet.
Okay. Do you know if well, then you may not know, but in your opinion, would it be a good idea to include industry in this and pharmacies with the pharmacy board, just to make sure we're business friendly?
Yeah, I think it's always a good idea to talk to the people who are affected, the patients, but also the providers, and to include them, and I would welcome speaking with them. In the California analysis, it does list the people who had registered support of the bill and then opposition. The support, luckily, was a lot larger than the opposition out there, but there were a few pharmacies who had opposed it.
Yeah, I'm looking for that opposition. I'm curious if you've heard what independent pharmacies feel about this. Those are obviously the smaller pharmacies.
Right, and I was thinking of that today, that I should go. I only know of, unfortunately, one that's left in my community. Most of them have been bought up, but I will reach out to them.
Okay.
And I do, but I had not done so yet.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Senator Whitgos.
Thank you. I don't mean to minimize and make fun of this, but one tablet 3 times twice daily. Somebody said that rather than a bottle. You'd sit there and say, "Now, what does that exactly mean?" And hopefully that's where we're trying to go with this, to make it very plain and clear as to, if somebody has a prescription bottle of medication, when am I supposed to take it? What is it? And then possibly see instructions for further information. But is there a standardization as to the language that we hope to appear on a bottle, so it's will be the same? And I guess I never thought about this issue. I go to a pharmacy and either have a script called in by the doctor, or you hand it over the counter, and then the label is just placed on the container, and you go from there. Are those different across in Connecticut, across the board, as to the information that's contained on those containers?
That is something I mean, I use Target Pharmacy. I haven't gone to another pharmacy to look at their labels. So that is something I have to look. But most of the labels for use are printed right at the pharmacy itself and then stuck on the bottle. So they're not as standardized as if you're buying an over-the-counter medication where it's it's the same language on all of those. And the reason for simplifying the language is that many people get the instructions from the doctor, yet when they leave, they don't remember or they don't always go in and take notes. My wife is a family medicine physician, and many people call less than an hour or 2 hours after they've left the office to remind her how to take the medication. And so it's instructions that are there right when they're taking the medication to make sure it's clear.
We don't require on the bottle itself, take at bedtime, take with food, take whatever. I mean, I thought every prescription bottle now comes with directions as to the amount and frequency and when it should be taken. That's not the case?
I do believe they do come with instructions currently. However, I think it's just looking at standardizing the language since they can all be different, use different language. Okay. Since it's printed at the point of sale.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any further questions? Representative Rivera.
I have two questions. First, I have a problem with you keep on bringing up California like they were the gods of all gods. I'll be honest with you, I'm familiar with California and I have a problem with that. But the second thing is that you talk about the large pharmacies are doing all the things they should be doing, and I'm one that takes quite a few medicines. I have found out since my local pharmacy is going out of business because of the large pharmacies, and I'm not saying they don't do a good job, I don't get that personal service. Before I used to walk in and I take about 20 pills a day, believe it or not. I'm a druggie. But, he used to walk in and say, Dan, you can't take this with this one, you take this one at 8 o'clock. The place I go to get my drugs now, they're very nice people, but they don't give me this personalized service. So we might think that the best and the cheapest is to go huge, and I'm not too sure that's the correct answer all the time. So, some of this we can talk about the small pharmacies aren't doing it, and it might be a burden on them. They don't have to write it on a label. Usually when you walk into that pharmacy, they tell you just what you have to do, and you don't have to worry about the label because when you leave there, you know exactly what you have to do. But thank you very much anyways, and try to bring up another state besides California.
I'm sure New York probably isn't too much better in your... No, I think you bring up a good point, though, is that because there are so many larger pharmacies and a lot of people now get their medications mail order, that it actually makes it more important to make sure that the language on the labels is clearer because people don't have that one-on-one attention from the pharmacist to explain and to look for the interactions. And that's part of the problem. When people take a large number of medications, there can be potential interactions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any further questions from the committee? Seeing Representative Carter, excuse me.
Thank you very much. Sorry about that, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the second time. One thing occurred to me. You know some people or you have contacts with people in the medical community who've done this research?
Yes.
Is it possible to find out if they've done any research subsequently to putting the law into California? I noticed this was 2010. Maybe there's something there that would support the actual outcomes, with respect to medication errors. Just put that out there. Maybe you could find that information for the committee.
I will, if it's okay with you, I'll follow up with you later to get the specific questions, and I'll send them to her, and I'll get you the answers.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Barham.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Obviously, when you purchase medications, they come in different size containers. Wouldn't the size of the container, sort of guide how big font and how much verbiage you could put on the label? I mean, sometimes you get a very thin, tall bottle with small pills, and it's almost impossible to imagine how they would make a larger font. I'm wondering if you've looked at that issue.
Yeah, and I need to look how that is handled. I think my assumption is that usually when you have the smaller bottles, I know we're all trying to be green and not waste, but they come inside of a box, and the stickers, like when I get my asthma inhaler, the stickers on the outside of the box with the instruction, even though the inhaler itself is smaller. So, but with the smaller pill bottles, I would need to look into that for you. But one of the ways, though, that they do it is they tuck the instructions are folded behind the label, so they'll have a sheet that you can take out that folds out that is a little larger.
Thank you. Any further questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.